We are alive. It is December 17th, 2025, and we know our great Commander in Chief and President Donald J. Trump will be addressing the nation. We will continue with this broadcast and we will view it later. I have an incredible show lined up. And before I get into that, by the way, my name is John Michael Chambers. This is the Global Financial Reset Show, published live every Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern on our website, jmcbroadcasting.com, Rumble, on our various distribution network channels and platforms. I want to make a quick mention before we sail right into the content with our three guests. And then what I'd like to mention is I've been in touch with a team member, Peter's Camp, as well as Juan O'Savin, and I'll be recording at the very conclusion of this broadcast an episode, a special report with Juan O'Savin to reveal some great news and, according to Juan, a truckload of information. This will be published within 24 hours, so stay tuned. Joining me today are my guests. We think we have in the queue. If not, we'll bring him in next week. U.S. Attorney live from Bangkok, Benjamin Hart, who will comment on the Cambodia and Thailand conflict, which, even though President Trump has yet again intervened, the bombing, sadly to say, is still continuing, and I can vouch for that being here in Thailand. We'll also have Will Barney and Bill Armour of Genesis Gold. Now, Bill and Hillary Clinton are scheduled to testify 17th and 18th. Let's see how that plays out. And we also have the release of the Epstein files on December 19th. Powerful few days sitting here right now. Things are heating up, and in my opinion, we could see market mayhem in stocks, bonds, real estate in the coming weeks, or perhaps coming short months. We're going to talk about that and a lot more. Get out of the system. Goots, it's time. All right, President Trump is addressing the nation today exactly on the 17th. 17th, wonderful. 17th letter. Isn't that an interesting date? There is a lot of talk behind the scenes that President Trump will be declaring a national emergency over elections because of all the evidence that's been coming out about the 2020 rigged election and the connections with Venezuela, Dominion, and Smartmatic software. He will be redoing all voter rolls where everybody will have to register and will have same-day voting with paper ballots nationwide. By declaring a national emergency for elections, he can take control of all elections, local, state, and national. But for now, let's focus on the main statement here. The President said, "My fellow Americans," in his public social media announcement, in which there are only 3 Q posts that use this exact phrase, "My fellow Americans, the storm is upon us." Q35, POTUS will be well insulated, protected on Air Force One when that time comes, and abroad, special locations classified, while these operations are conducted due to the nature of the entrenchment. It is time to take back our country and make America great again. Let us salute and pray for the brave men and women in uniform who will undertake this assignment to bring forth peace, unity, and return power back to we the people. Q55, look to Twitter. Exactly this, quote, "My fellow Americans, the storm is upon us." That's the language we are looking for. All right, I'm publishing the just recorded special report, as I mentioned a moment ago, with Juan O'Savin in 24 hours, with up to the minute reporting on Tina Peters. And per Juan, in addition to Tina Peters, he's going to unload a truckload of critical content. This will be published at JMC Broadcasting and on our distribution channels in 24 hours. All right, to my producer, if you can let me know, do we have Benjamin Hart in the queue? All right, if Benjamin steps in, just let me know. We'll bring him on the show. And if we're unable to, I'll do a pre-recorded and pop it in next week. That brings me to our first guest, a returning guest, and this is Will Barney. And I'm glad to have Will back here at the Global Financial Reset. Give me a moment. I got to advance some content here in light of Benjamin not being available. So bear with me. I want to properly introduce Will, and I certainly don't have his biography memorized. So hang on there. We are live, and we are getting there in just one moment. All right. This is not the way I like to roll, but it is what it is. Here we go. All right. Will brings over 19 years of experience in the banking sector, where he has developed a strong specialization in structuring funding for commercial projects on a global scale. And by the way, folks, in the future, as you come to know Will further, I'll just sort of briefly introduce him. But since he's new to our audience relatively, I'm going to formally introduce him. His career has been characterized by successful collaborations with banks to syndicate and finance commercial ventures, often involving substantial financial commitments that exceed tens of millions of dollars. Will's professional journey encompasses significant roles with both commercial banks and private equity firms, where he consistently delivered tailored solutions to meet the needs of large-scale commercial projects. Also, early in his career, he had a stint in entertainment. Before embarking upon his career in banking, Will gained valuable experience in the entertainment industry. His work encompassed professional recording, concert production, and television production as an audio engineer, enabling him to develop a unique skill set and perspective that he later applied to his roles in the business sector. He also has a background in construction, as does our president. Will's early exposure to the building industry began during his upbringing as the son of a general contractor. Sound familiar? Growing up on construction sites, he acquired firsthand knowledge of various aspects of construction, further broadening his understanding of commercial projects from the ground up. Our audience really applauds the knowledge, I'll call traditional old school knowledge and experience, as well as one who is well awakened and on the pulse of the truth today. Please welcome back to the Global Financial Reset, our good friend, Will Barney.
Hello, John. Good to be with you today.
Good to see you. Thank you for bearing with my struggle of the disruptive introduction, but we got through it. And let's just get right into things. I've got a series of questions I'd like to raise, and anything, of course, at any moment during our discussion, something that has not been addressed that you'd like to bring to the attention of the American people, please do so, sir. So we have discussed, Will, in previous episode. I want to go a little bit more micro now. I'm very much in touch with my audience. And I want to do a shout out to Dr. Joseph Peck of Empower 2000. Folks, look up empower2000.com. And you'll learn a little bit more about his organization. I just concluded a masterclass series and a course that was designed by me and them, and 2 live group Q&A sessions. And so I'm very much in touch with my audience through that method, through following the Rumble and social media comments and the 100 or so emails I get each week. And from that, I'm going to get your questions answered to my audience with our panel today. So, Will, we've discussed in a previous episode cryptocurrency. And this is very new to a lot of us. Some folks have been following crypto way back when we all thought it was a conspiracy theory. And for the record, Juan O'Savin, in the intelligence community in a variety of capacities since the time of Ronald Reagan, has told me, a year or two ago easily, that crypto was originally a black hat operation in its early days, designed to drive in all of our money through the dark side of crypto. And then Hillary, of course, was supposed to win 2016. But let's see, I think God and Trump intervened on that, and so did we. And that never happened. But she was going to then take us down to Chinatown clandestinely through the crypto that it would have captured, bankrupted us, and moved us into the digital bank. But anyway, thank goodness that's been disrupted. And crypto has taken a lot of different turns and is a major part of where we are heading. And Juan would concur. So, after all that impromptu stuff, let me get back to my talking points. Will, you and I have discussed in previous episodes cryptocurrency, and I'd like to get into a couple of specific aspects in the simplest layman terms, Will, for both me and my audience. Let me begin with this. I've come to understand from speaking with you and other great guests here on the GFR that there are perhaps 7 or 8 cryptos, you mentioned this last broadcast, worthy of looking into and acquiring, and the others to steer clear from. Can you name some of those cryptos that are preferred, and again, remind us of why it is that way? And then we're going to get into something to our audience that you absolutely want to listen to. So, Will, if you understood the question, can you take that on, please?
Well,
Thank you.
the key point of these cryptos that you and I were discussing is they're all compliant with ISO 20022. What is that? That is
And what does
basically
that
the
mean?
standard
Yes.
for reporting financial transactions. So it's setting a standard for how financial transactions should be reported, and it's going around the whole world. And the reason for this is because it won't matter what blockchain you're on, as long as that blockchain reports the same way, you can be interoperable with other chains so that you can move money back and forth. And that's the whole point of being compatible with that. Um, the banks have already done that in the United States. Other countries are trying to get compatible now. Some made the deadline on the 22nd November, some did not. There's a few that are still trying to finish up this month. So that's the important part. So you've got 8 essentially coins that are fully compliant with that, but you have others trying to get compliant. We just had something happen this week where Bitcoin came out with Bitcoin VM, virtual machine. This is an effort to try to synchronize as well. So you're not going to see, when you got major coins like Bitcoin and Ethereum and stuff, they don't want to miss the party, okay? Because they've been around a long time. So you're going to see probably additional moves made to get everybody synchronizing together, even for those that were not compliant in the past. It wouldn't surprise me if they made additional moves that make that possible. And I think that's what virtual machine is about synchronizing those chains. So the ones that we're talking about, though, is XRP, XLM.
Yes.
You've got, let's see, XRP, XLM, and HBAR is another one. You've got Doge isn't on the list, unfortunately, but it may be getting there. But you do have several others. If you can Google it, and there's a full list of them. I don't know why it's escaping me at the moment, but we have those that are ready to go. In other words, they were the first adopters to get on board with ISO 20022, and now we have the whole world getting operable with this standard. I think it's important to pay attention to this because we were able to go to FedNow in the US, which is instant settlement. It's supposed to be instant wires within minutes. I've actually tried this. It did work. It was about 5 minutes, but that's a lot better than the next day. Okay. But that only happened after we went live with the ISO standard. So what you see is you see adoption even within the banks trying to get hooked up, if you will. So this whole process of rewiring the world to a new financial system isn't something that just happened in one day. And we're still in process with some countries. So everybody's trying to get ready to roll. And that'll be important because everybody wants to be ready and able to synchronize when we get to the point of revaluation of currencies, because there needs to be no issues on that day that occurs, where money can move instantly to people's accounts for those various assets that they may be holding. So it's a big deal that's going on with that. I don't think it can be understated, but people don't need to get caught up in what is this ISO stuff. All it means is that financial transactions are reported identically the same way in every country. It doesn't matter what chain they're on, as long as they're reporting the same, they can be interoperable.
Thank you, Will. So XRP would be on that list you've indicated. Would XLM be?
Yes.
To the best of your recollection? Okay.
XRP and XLM are both there, yeah.
Okay.
So Ripple is the custodian basically for XRP. XRP is open source. The XRP ledger is open source, so other people can code themselves to work within the ledger. Okay, because it is open source. But you have Ripple as being the custodian for that at this point, and they're holding quite a bit in escrow still. They've been releasing it at various stages over the last many months. And Ripple's an interesting company because they've been in the process of applying for banking license, and they just got approval just this last week from the OCC to go ahead with that process. So the OCC is the one that's in charge of those approvals, and now they're going to be compliant with not only OCC, which is the Office of Comptroller, but and currency, but you also have their compliance with the state of New York, which is probably one of the most tight in terms of regulation of any of the states in the United States. New York has the tightest regulation in terms of safety for the public of any of the other states. So the fact that they're meeting that standard, as well as now being approved by the OCC, means you're going to see a lot more coming from Ripple. Their stablecoin that they issued actually a year ago yesterday, I believe it was, or maybe it's a year ago today, is very interesting because it has moved from not being the first kid on the block to go stablecoin, but it's now in the top 5 and is still moving. So that'll be an interesting stablecoin to watch, the RLUSD. And so we'll keep an eye on that one as it seems to be a front runner.
You will. That dovetails right into, again, KISS, Keep It Simple, Sam. Walk us through, because you mentioned people need to be ready for when the trigger is pulled, so forth and so on. So walk us through the sequential process of just how it is that one, invests in crypto. So let's just use XRP as an example. Could be any one of the 7 or 8 you've alluded to. Pardon me, folks, but the show goes on. Eventually the cough will be gone. And I've never smoked, by the way. All right. So we have here, walk us through the sequential process of just how it is that one invests in crypto. So someone says, okay, this makes sense. I've followed up on what Will and others have suggested. I've done my homework. I'm going to invest in crypto. What are the platforms that people can go to that can acquire the crypto? But now let's go a few more layers into it, as well as what type of wallet they will have access to in the platform where they acquired that crypto. And I understand that wallets can be private with just one key holder, which I would assume should be the owner of the crypto, but there could also be multiple key owners. And there are potentially dangerous pitfalls strewn within this process. And I don't want our viewers to be scammed by the onslaught of impersonators that impersonate me and many other people, saying, come direct message me, I'm going to get you all set up. Can you comment on the pitfalls, the things to avoid, and to the best of your knowledge? And I realize there are multiple platforms. I used Uphold. There are other different places. I do own some XRP. But walk us through sort of what I've just laid out to protect the viewers and to instruct, to the best of your knowledge, the viewers of how to go about the process to get the right crypto, get it structured the right way, so when the trigger is eventually pulled and we're in the new system, we are prepared. It's very simple, but very important.
It's a great question, and there's several steps to this. Most people start out learning about crypto will go to what we call a software wallet. Go to a company like Uphold, Coinbase, Binance, depending on what country you're in. So these are exchanges that allow you to set up a wallet digitally within their system and to buy crypto and to hold it within that wallet. However, all of the exchanges retain the rights to the keys. Now, what's interesting about crypto, it's very interesting because it's all based on tokens. Token is something that represents value. Okay, and it could be anything. And in the future, you're going to see a lot more happening with tokenization. You'll see stock market be fully tokenized before long. You'll see real estate tokenized in the form of the token representing the deed of the land and everything else. So there's a lot of changes coming, but more particularly in the trading world with stock markets and everything, you're going to see the adoption happen fairly rapidly as anything of value starts moving to a tokenized form where it can then be traded easily with somebody else. So that's a little bit about what token is. So what's going to happen is when you buy tokens, what we call cryptocurrency, those tokens don't actually go to your wallet. They reside upon the ledger itself. Okay, they stay there. However, they can't be used, they can't be bought, they can't be sold without the key to move it. And it's the keys that's the important part of this. So when you go to a software wallet, it doesn't matter if it's Coinbase or Uphold or Binance, any of these companies, the Gemini is another one. They're keeping custody of the key. Okay. Now there is ways that you can hold the keys privately, and those are usually done in the form of hardware wallets. So that's where you'd buy a device that that's encrypted. It's got a chip on it that holds the keys personally on your device, and then you have to validate it each time you do a transaction. That is probably the safest method of holding keys. And the reason is because in the past, exchanges have been able to do whatever they wanted to with the keys because they were holding the key. And so what's happened in the past, and I'm not trying to point fingers at any one exchange in this comment, but what's happened is it's been a little bit of a Wild West. So while people think they're holding their tokens in their digital wallet, the exchange itself could be trading with those tokens using the keys that they're holding overnight or in the background, and you're not aware of that. And so then when you go to move tokens to somebody else, maybe you want to move it to, you're sending tokens to somebody else, or you're buying new ones. But if you're selling them, then you need to recover those tokens. Well, what they'll do is they'll provide tokens for you to send out. But is it the original ones you bought? It may or may not be, because there's a lot of stuff going on in the background. It's kind of like overnight trading that goes on with the banks where they loan the money overnight, and you got these overnight windows. Well, similar things have been happening in crypto land. This is why a lot of the very savvy crypto guys that got into this early, they went to what's called hardware wallets, so they could hold the keys and they could control who's trading those or who's not trading those. So there's nothing scary about crypto in terms of it's going to hurt you in any way. But what is important to understand is whose responsibility is the key going to be? Do you want to take it yourself personally, or do you want to give it to somebody else? Now, I will say this, because this is an important component. If you're taking the full responsibility of the keys, do not lose your passcode to your device, or you have lost access to those tokens forever. Okay. And this has happened a few times where hardware wallets have been misplaced and there's no recovery. Okay. So it's kind of a responsibility that everybody has to take unto themselves if they're going to do that. Now, what we've had happening over the last few years in various countries, and the United States is not alone in this, is legislation is being drafted by various governments to create what they call regulation of how Cryptoville will run. Okay. I'm using a slang term there, but in crypto land, it's kind of been a little bit of a Wild West. Each exchange doing whatever they want to do and maximizing their intake of money through the use of using keys. However, the new rules that are coming with much of the legislation in various countries are giving kind of protections, consumer protections, much like you have in the banking world, where there's certain things the bank cannot do with your bank account, right? And so because of those protections, you are afforded as a consumer and a customer of the bank certain protections for your bank account. Well, what we have is similar legislation now being drafted for crypto. And in the United States, that's the Digital Asset Clarification Act, which goes hand in hand with the Genius Act, which we discussed, I think, on our last call. Genius Act covers all stablecoins, which is essentially US dollars on the system. And the Digital Asset Clarification Act covers all the rest of the digital tokens, crypto tokens, which is everything else, like your XLM and XRP and everything else. So they kind of go hand in glove together. What's been interesting in the United States, as we've been watching this play out, is that the House passed the Genius bill, the Clarity Act bill, and also the No CBDC bill all at the same time, and that was last July. The Senate then picked up the Genius Act and passed it right away. And within a few days, it was on the president's desk. So they have that covered. What we don't know is why they're waiting on the Digital Asset Clarification Act, because it still has yet to be passed many, many months later now. So we're waiting to find out what's going on with the Senate, what the holdup is. But I have a feeling that they're being instructed to hold up for a specific timeline, because it wouldn't make sense that they would do one bill and not the other when they're coordinated like this. So what's interesting to me is as I'm watching the activity between the Congress and the president's done various things on executive orders, but in order for these things to become law, where they can't be changed, they can't be manipulated, we do need Congress to act. What I do see in terms of revaluation of currencies is that this blockchain system will likely be the delivery mechanism, how you will receive your new currency in exchange for your assets, and that will be gold or asset-backed currency. So what the holdup here is that we do need this Clarity Act passed, but once that is passed, I don't know what else there is to do, because things could move very rapidly at that point. So there must be a timing issue going on here, where maybe they're putting some final pieces of the puzzle together before they're going to finish this bill, because once that's done, we can move forward very quickly. So that's just some of my take on using crypto. But please, those of you that are new to it, don't be afraid of it. It's nothing scary. It's just holding assets digitally instead of a piece of paper in your hand with the president's face on it.
Valuable background and important information. And folks, we'll get there. One quick follow-up. We're going to move into a different subject in just a moment, but finishing up this crypto discussion, at least in this broadcast today, XRP, Bitcoin, and many of the others have basically been in a free fall. Particularly XRP, still a bit on its way down, which is why I just acquired a little bit more. Where in your crystal ball, it's a crystal ball question, I get it, but in your best guess, where do you see XRP heading in terms of its growth and value over the course of next year?
Well, XRP is looked at very differently. It's actually represented very differently in the marketplaces. Everyone's been able to observe when Bitcoin and Ethereum go crazy, XRP doesn't necessarily do that. It's like its own trajectory, and everybody's trying to figure out why. XRP's value isn't based upon just what somebody thinks it's worth. And that's a bit like what Ethereum and Bitcoin are based on. It's going to be based on what the public thinks it's worth and what they're willing to pay for it. XRP has its value tied to its utility. So what is its use case? How valuable is it? Depends on what it can do. And most of the tokens that we're talking about that are ISO compliant, they're all kind of based on that same standard, which is if I can do more with this token than another token, its value should be higher because I have more utility with it. I can either close faster or something to that effect. XLM and XRP move very quickly. I've had transactions conclude in 5 seconds, which is very fast when you compare it to some others. With the third-party verification of Bitcoin, that takes longer. 30 to 45 minutes is not unusual. Ethereum is kind of similar. It takes a little while to verify that. So there's a real difference in speed. I think it's kind of a no contest when you look at the difference between XRP and Bitcoin in terms of speed. But speed isn't always everything. But XRP has a unique role to play, that it has this ability to be a go-between, to be a liquidity between two other types of currencies. So one currency can convert to XRP, and then XRP can convert to another currency. And now you've concluded a transaction very fast, very quickly, and very inexpensively. Today's currency conversions are very expensive to do. If I want to send money to you on the other side of the world, John, and I want you to receive local currency, well, the bank that I'm sending from, they have to hold the amount of dollars I want to send, but they also have to hold the amount of foreign currency that I want to send to you at the same time. So the bank has to be double capitalized to do that transaction.
Wow.
With
Yeah.
XRP, there's no double capitalization. You move from one currency to XRP and then XRP to the other one. It eliminates that, so it really reduces the overhead of capitalization needed for cross-border payments. And this is why the utility function is so high on a product like XRP, because it has this ability to really be the grease that can move transactions. And in a world where trillions move every day, that can be a big deal.
Yeah, that's valuable information I've just learned. So, with the pullback in XRP today and everything I'm listening to, and plus other information I've acquired over time here, would you say that XRP is going to be a good place for people to go to if they're looking for exposure in crypto? And do you expect it to be its value to be raised significantly over the next year or so? Any comment about that?
I
Your opinion?
I do. I think its value is going to be dramatically higher. However, I don't know that that's going to fully kick in until we get to the point of everybody's
Right.
using it, right? If you flip the switch and say everything's going blockchain and we need to move money, well, people are going to automatically move to XRP very quickly for that movement. But it's interesting to look at. If you look at all the money that moves every day, the trillions of dollars that move all over the world across various borders every day in just trade alone, you have to have a certain value to that token in order to meet the liquidity requirements in order to move those funds. So if you start doing the math on what it takes to do that, you start coming up with a much higher number than where it is. I mean, dramatically higher. So it
Got
wouldn't
it.
surprise me if one day we see XRP eclipse Bitcoin and lap it in terms of value, because the higher the value it is, the more liquidity it can provide to the system itself. So I do think that that's going to be a bit of a moving number, but I do think it will be in the future substantially higher once there's a lot of people loading up with the XRP in order to do money movements.
Great. Thank you. Good information. Let's move on to how close do you think we are to a stock, bond, and market correction? We know there's been downward movement in the bond market. We know a lot of banks are having difficulty. We know that municipal bonds are in trouble. But what's your view on the stock, bond, and market correction, and just how, who, or what do you believe will trigger that cascading event? How, who, or what? Is it market fundamentals? Is it debt? Is it President Trump somehow pulling the plug to flush out the Rothschild deep state banking system? Is it a combination of these three? Am I off the mark? So, A, do you believe there'll be a correction stock, bond, and real estate? And what will be the driving force to create that?
Well, there's a couple of things that are in play right now that can affect how that plays out. Okay. So let's talk about what typically happens. The stock market is at an all-time high in the United States right now. It's never been this high. If you look at NASDAQ, you look at the S&P, you look at the Dow, they're at all-time levels. So what is going on there? A lot of people say, oh, it's pumped up with air. Okay, we got fake values or whatever. But what's interesting is all of that has moved up since the implementation of much of the strategy of this current administration, where they are trying to actually backstop the country and put together a foundation underneath this. It almost appears as if they're trying to clean the system out without necessarily crashing it. It's very fascinating to watch. So if you look at what the statement that was made by the SEC chairman just last week regarding what's going to happen with tokenization, he predicted in the next 24 months that all stock markets would be tokenized in the very near future, 12 to 24 months, he said. So this is a very interesting component, because when you tokenize all of that, what you do is you suddenly take all that trading and you put it right out on the ledger where suddenly it has full transparency. What does this do? That clears out the problems very fast, because you can't hide issues anymore. And you can settle those trades the same day. You and I talked about how you always had to plan an extra 2 days to finalize the money, right? Because the money had to settle. Well, now if we can settle that in seconds and we can trade it, you're going to see things move very rapidly. But you're also going to see that it was going to be impossible for the continued graft that's been going on in the markets to continue, because the system literally makes it obvious what's happening. It actually makes the job much easier on agencies like the SEC, who are trying to police this security activity to make sure that it's compliant. The system itself kind of does that for you in a sense, that you know who the shareholders are. Now, one of the things that's interesting about today's market is you could have a large company, a Microsoft, for instance, right? They've got a lot of shareholders everywhere, all around the world. I can guarantee you, if you talk to Microsoft, they couldn't tell you where half of their shareholders are or who they are. They have no idea, right? Only that they're holding some shares. So what's interesting is when you go to tokenization, the system tells you, you know who has it and how much they have. It's all it's all about clarity, all about transparency. So the interesting thing is, we move into the adoption of these technologies, we actually eliminate the fraud, the backroom deals in the process. And I'm watching this very closely, because there was either two things that were going to happen. We were either going to hit the wall and completely crash, like you're saying. I mean, massive correction. When I mean massive, I mean like 50%, okay? 25, 30, 40, and then finally down to 50 within a couple of days. That was a possibility, okay, to clear the system out. However, if you move stuff over to a transparent system, it starts to clean in the process. And it could be that we have an administration that doesn't want it to crash, because if it does, it wipes out everybody's retirement accounts. Everybody's going to be angry at you. So they may be taking another approach to this that is a different path than what we have seen in the past. And, you know, I'm all for that if there's a softer landing.
Yes.
I realize
Well,
that's
thanks,
a complicated
Will.
answer,
If you wouldn't,
that's how we're.
no, it's an important answer. I thank you very much. Can you please sit in the digital green room for a moment? We've got the attorney, Benjamin Hart from Bangkok, in the green room waiting on us. I've got to sort of bring him in right now because his time is limited. Would you be able to stand by and continue this discussion after I sign Benjamin Hart off?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll be back.
Thank you. So to our audience, Will Barney and Bill Armour will be on after Benjamin Hart. Benjamin Hart is an American attorney and naturalized Thai citizen. He immigrated to Thailand in 2018 and has lived and worked there ever since. He founded the law firm of Integrity Legal, which you can follow on YouTube. He hails from Kansas, where he worked in the casino industry while attending law school before moving abroad and making his way in Southeast Asia. I am a client of his firm. He, as a foreigner living abroad, he's helped me in numerous ways here. Anyone looking to come here to travel, reside, extended stay, he's the guy you want to learn from. And we have a small Thai audience following us, but this is a world news event that I'd like Benjamin Hart to weigh in on. Can we bring Benjamin on screen, please? All right, Benjamin, thank you. You're live. Thank you for joining us, sir. I want to jump right into Cambodia and Thailand, and then we're going to get into some issues concerning banking as it's happening here in Southeast Asia, as perhaps a warning and a heads up for Americans. But for those, and I believe a lot of our audience, because they're worldly focused, they understand the conflict that's happening at the border between Cambodia and Thailand. You and I spoke off air last week about, President Trump once again and Malaysia intervening. And you were right off there. You said, you're happy that the president would intervene, and he seemed to have had an impact initially, but you weren't very confident that his intervening was going to make a bit of a difference. And you were right, because they are still bombing over here, if I understand it correctly. Can you explain the conflict between Cambodia and Thailand? Why are they fighting? What is going on? Is this going to escalate, or do you see a ceasefire and ultimately an agreement putting this to an end?
A couple real quick, just to not to correct you completely, but I moved here in 2008, not 2018. So just it's 10 years earlier than that. Yeah, it takes a while to become Thai too. So if I'd have gotten here in 2018, I wouldn't have become Thai.
Yes.
Regarding the Thai Cambodian situation, it's very touch and go, I think, at the moment. And yeah, I said this on my own channel a couple of days ago, I guess. I think at this point, even the prime minister here has said, this outside influence, this sort of, you know, the outside influence, they don't care now. The Thais, I made a video a couple of weeks ago, I guess, where I asked the question, have we heard the snap of the Thais at the border? For people that have not ever been to Thailand or don't understand, like, Thais are the sweetest, easiest, most easygoing people in the world. They go along, get along. It's Mai Pen Rai, it's Greng Jai, which Mai Pen Rai is like no worries. Greng Jai is civility. We're all sort of just happy, going along, getting along. But when they do, finally, they're done. They're done. And I think we've hit that wall largely. Now, in the past couple of days, yesterday specifically, I believe the Thais had taken a major point of contention along the border in one of the north. I call it the Khmer Crescent, the sort of border between Cambodia and Thailand. It looks like sort of like a crescent moon. And I just read recently that up in the sort of northern part, I think it was up near sort of Surin and all of that, the military had taken, I saw footage on X too. There was a scene of them putting up a flag and they were comparing it to flags of our fathers, Iwo Jima. And then last thing I read last night before I went to sleep was that they had also secured Trot, that one of the field commanders down there had announced that, look, we've secured what we want to do in Trot. So the Thais overall are doing, I think, very well insofar as what their objectives are, if you will. But I think we're way out past the parameters of anything I can see to try to predict this. My hope is, and my thinking is, the Thais are going to take what limited objectives they want to take. They're going to secure and hold them. And then that's basically the objective. They're not interested in, invasion, further. They want border security. What this is all about is that ordnance was being, this past summer and then here recently, was going over the border of Cambodia into Thailand. It was hitting civilian targets. And we also had service personnel who were lost over the summer. We've now had both lost again since this flared back up. That's the priority. This isn't any further than that. It's a, if you will, a war of protection, if nothing else. It's not sort of any kind of a imperial designs or something of this nature.
Thank you. Again, forgive me, folks. Thank you, Ben.
No.
For bringing some clarity.
I'm the same way.
Current update. While we're both hydrating here, let's switch gears to the banking. And folks, our audience in America and around the world, please listen, because there is a global financial reset taking place, and it is global in various factions, in various ways, in various stages over time. So before we talk about banking in Thailand, for those that may not have heard, briefly, Ben, walk us through what happened in recent months in Vietnam concerning the banking and any up-to-date information concerning those 80 some odd million accounts, and we'll take it a few steps deeper in a moment.
Yeah. Okay. So in Vietnam, I had to do 2 videos on my main channel on this, because the first one I did is I did a video that said, hey, they shut down 86,000 bank accounts in Vietnam. Then somebody sent me an email and they said, hey, you didn't look at your source material right. They shut down 86 million bank accounts in Vietnam, which that is just, I mean, now some of the numbers you have to look at and say, okay, there could have been defunct companies in there. There could be bank accounts of dead people. They may have taken this as an initiative to go ahead and just clear out their banking system of the sort of detritus, if you will, of, sort of defunct accounts. But still, 86 million accounts in a nation of, I believe, Vietnam's population's around 95 million people. I mean, that's just a staggering number relative to the overall sort of the overall sort of population. So yeah, that was a big deal. Now, ancillary to that, if you will, or happening contemporaneously with that, was Thailand started doing a lot of, in my opinion, Orwellian stuff with regard to banking. They started calling people in. They wanted to do biometrics, do facial photos for facial recognition, to do biometrics, to keep your account. I've had multiple clients say their accounts have been frozen. They then came down and said, oh, for digital banking transactions, we're capping it out at 50,000 baht a day, or 50,000 baht per transaction on the digital platforms, which 50,000 baht's about $1,500. If you need to transfer $3,000 equivalent or 100,000 baht, you can do 2 transfers at 50,000 a pop and get away with that. But again, it's not optimal. And also, and I've talked about this at length wherever I've been at in the ether of the internet, I thought all of this digital banking was supposed to make our lives better. It was supposed to make our lives more convenient. Everything was going to be easier. If I need to move $100,000 over to somebody because I need to get something done, I mean, I don't really see where we need some intermediary, whatever, that basically says, oh, well, you got to go through all these hoops for no good reason, but we're going to make you do it anyway. Now, understand the Thais in the aftermath of 97 are very reticent. They're very cagey about notions of what they used to call, I don't see it referred to this so much anymore, but hot money moving in and moving out quickly from the economy, because that is what caused Thailand to have serious problems back in 97 with the crash and all of that. So on one level, the Thais are always going to have a kind of buffering mechanism within their banking system to sort of slow down certain transactions. I mean, you bank over here, John, you understand. We still have bank books, I mean, it's intentionally been kept in an analog way to sort of slow down, if you will, the worst vagaries of possible sort of capital flight, if you will. The point I'm trying to make is there's already some of those mechanisms that would have sort of institutionally are in place because of the 97 stuff. Couple that with it's my understanding there's still not a parliamentary law promulgated on OECD, although much like the United States was doing under Biden, they have this kind of cabinet resolution, this sort of executive order that says, hey, we're working toward that. So in furtherance of working toward that, we're going to act as if we've already sort of promulgated it. Much hats off to President Trump. He got rid of all of this like day one when he came in. And I've quoted his executive order at length in many videos talking about the Thai sort of ramifications, because he's right. It's a direct attack on national sovereignty. It creates extraterritorial jurisdiction. It's basically OECD is designed so that some other country, it's supranationalism, what they call supranationalism. Mm-hmm. And it's globalism by another name, arose by another name, but they call it supranationalism. So if you've got like a British pensioner sitting on Pattaya Beach drawing his money down in Thailand, and then he goes over 180 days and some other taxable event occurs, Britain is going to then be telling Thailand, oh, well, you need to take this amount of money, but you can't take this amount of money, and you need to extract this amount of tax from him, remit it back to us, and then we credit you for your foreign nationals that are in our country. I don't want this. I don't think the Thais want this. I think ultimately it will go away. Ultimately, COVID went away here in Thailand and the nonsense associated with that, but it took, a couple of years. So it's similar to that insofar as we're seeing a lot of outside undue influence being brought to bear on Thailand. I think ultimately the Thais will do what they want and what they believe is in their interests. But for now, we're kind of in this limbo. Yes, 86 million accounts closed in Vietnam. We haven't really seen account closures here in Thailand. More, it's been, hey, we're going to freeze your account until you come in, do all your biometrics, and then we'll reopen your account, give you your money back, whatever. Also, different banks here in Thailand are different levels of assiduous about this. Some of them outright don't even care. They think it's stupid. So for our clients, we've had to, move them around into new bank accounts, new banking facilities here in Thailand. There are good banking facilities that aren't necessarily making people run through all of this rigmarole. But that being said, we're dealing with it quite a bit here in Southeast Asia. Also, I think it's a byproduct of, look, the world is shifting massively. And Southeast Asia, Thailand specifically, sits on one of the fault lines of the tectonic plates of this movement. Halford Mackinder talked about the world island some 130, 40 years ago, at the height of the British Empire. He talked about the homeland, sort of the Eurasian landmass, and then there'd be this outer rim called the Rimland. That's what we're living on. We're in the Rimland, and Thailand is as Rimland as it gets. We're on the fault line as the West does what it does, the East does what it does. I'm very hopeful that this ARC concept, America, Russia, China, in this sort of tripartite, tacit agreements where they agree to just kind of leave each other alone and then go about like operating the world. I'm rather hopeful that actually can kind of work out, because I can see where that kind of framework would actually be most conducive to sort of, I hesitate to say liberty, but it'll create enough cracks where normal people can kind of operate in the breach and find some level of freedom in that kind of setup that I'm not sure we can find in a totally multipolar sort of dog eat dog, winner take all kind of geopolitical situation. Nor do I think it was particularly great in these end days of the so-called unipolar moment. I mean, anybody that's tried to bank or do any business or maintain any level of financial privacy the last couple of years, especially since the beginning of COVID, that's been like trying to find water in the desert. It's been damn near impossible. So I think these changes overall are good in a way, especially for individuals. Now, for certain geopolitical actors, I'm not convinced it may be the best thing for them. But for now, I think especially the notion of ARC, America, Russia, China, figuring out some working relationship where we don't all blow each other all to hell, I think that would be a good thing overall, frankly.
Wow, what a series of transitions the world is dealing with right now. And as RFK Jr. recently said, fix the money, you'll fix the problems, So, Ben, as we wrap up our segment, it's been very valuable and I appreciate your insights. How could you summarize, and you sort of touched on it a bit, but how could you concisely summarize the what you see as the identifiable trajectory, at least here in Southeast Asia, that banking is embarked upon?
For Thailand specifically, and you have to understand, Thailand is sort of the spoke of the wheel, if you will, of Southeast Asia. There's a wheel that sort of spins around. Thailand sits in the middle of it. I think it's safe to say that Thailand itself, the trajectory, Thailand is like the center of a kaleidoscope. It's sitting in the middle and everything is spinning around it primarily. Now, other parts of Southeast Asia is going to be really interesting the next 10 years because different jurisdictions here are going to do things differently, and outsiders are going to find little niches for themselves in this region. So, for example, if you're like an international kind of high finance, like you're in some sort of business where you're on the high end of the value chain, if you will, I can see those type of people, especially from the West, are going to congregate into places like Singapore, specifically Singapore, because it's sort of a financial hub. They can kind of get in and out of the region through Singapore insofar as, they can bring their money in and then they can invest in greater Southeast Asia and get back out. That's going to be what's going to be comfortable for Westerners, because they like to invest in a very Western way. It's very sort of passive investing. It's not really how Southeast Asia works. If you want to be here long-term and have a long-term presence and do business out here over time, you got to put roots in. You got to be out here. I mean, I've been out here nearly 20 years, and I'm just here all the time. I don't fly around and do things in other parts of the world particularly, but I consciously made that decision. There's other countries like that in Southeast Asia. There's Thailand, there's Vietnam, where yes, you can come in, and if you put some roots down and you really want to get into that market, you can. But different jurisdictions in Southeast Asia are very different. I hear things, and I have very little working knowledge of Indonesia, but I hear a lot of good things. There's nowhere to go but up. It's doing very well. The cool thing about Southeast Asia and its trajectory is different economic actors from different places can find different opportunities throughout all of these various jurisdictions: the Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, even maybe Myanmar. I mean, as crazy as it is over there, I got to tell you, the wilder the East is, the further you can go up. Look, people thought I was crazy in 2010 when I was here and we were having the riots and everything. And people were saying, maybe you want to go home and not be out there anymore. Well, I decided to stick it out. It worked out for me. I'm not saying that was necessarily the right move for everybody, but the point I'm making, and the thing to take away for people that are outside of this looking in and maybe thinking they want to come in, every place is very, very different. Singapore is a wildly different thing from Thailand. Do not look at ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or Southeast Asia as some even slightly connected thing. I remember coming out here in the beginning, and I was going to set up various law offices throughout the different countries. And in my head, I just thought of it like different states in the US or something, because they were so close together geographically, and they're miles apart. Each jurisdiction is completely different from the other. Thailand is a civil law jurisdiction. It's never been colonized, has its own way of it has its own legal system, very unique, unlike anything else in the world. It has similarities to things because they adopted certain notions and things. Then you go down to Malaysia, and it's very British. They're a British colony. They utilize the common law in their legal system. Their thinking, their paradigm is much more like the British or the Westerners. Singapore, I think you could probably say the same thing, although I've never personally actually been to Singapore. But again, that's a totally different animal. Then you get over to Cambodia, which is civil law, but it's got its history being French Indochina. Completely different way of thinking. So what I would say to outsiders is, if you're looking at this place as a unified whole, all of Southeast Asia, it's the wrong way to look at it. You need to look at each jurisdiction for its specific, unique qualities.
Well, thanks for that clarification for the various countries here in Southeast Asia. Thanks a lot, Benjamin, for coming on and sharing your views on Cambodia and Thailand conflict. You're welcome. And on the banking issue, because it's important to see what's happening around the world with the currency transitions that the world is experiencing and the banking system itself. What's the best place for people to follow you, your podcast, your work, anything you want to direct the public to before we close out?
Yeah, thanks very much. Integrity Legal Thailand. If you just search that on YouTube, you'll all come up immediately. That's probably the easiest place to find my ongoing. We put out 3 videos a day. I've been doing that since COVID. I'm sort of inoculated to the workload now, so we just get that out pretty much consistently. Also, you can email us, or you can check out our websites, integrity-legal.com or www.legal.co.th. And if you want to email us, you can go ahead and email us info@legal.co.th. But easiest way to find us is Integrity Legal Thailand. Search for that on YouTube.
Excellent. I've been following Benjamin for, maybe 5 years when I was back home in the States, all the way up through now. A great channel, particularly for those that are in Thailand considering coming here. Last thing I want to mention, I want to thank you, Ben, for our private consult concerning my banking positions, as we've been discussing more generically here. And I'm in the process of just making some of those minor adjustments. So I want to thank you for that. And I want to thank you for being here, and look forward to having you back as things change. All right, folks. Thank you. Benjamin Hart, Bangkok, Thailand. since 2008. I stand corrected. And now we're going to bring back, no, Will Barney. Let's bring Will Barney back into my producer to finish our discussion. Then we're going to bring in Bill Armour. And I greatly appreciate Will and Bill standing by as we pivot here in this live show. I wanted to get Benjamin Hart on record because really nobody else has him or that type of information to share with the world. So Will, we're going to bring Bill Armour on in just a moment. Will, we've discussed before, I should say, how President Trump is dismantling the Federal Reserve and the IRS. Looks like Powell, for all intents and purposes, is out. Who will replace him, and what do you see developing as a result of this concerning Fed policy? What policy shifts will be made?
They'll likely name somebody fairly soon that might be a replacement for Powell. But the interesting thing is his term ends next May. And, I don't know how you feel about it, but I'd just be fine if they just ended the Federal Reserve and we don't need to put somebody in there. Personally,
Yes.
I would just much rather see that. Okay. What's interesting about Powell is he tends to be everything Trump says he is. Too little, too late at every step, every move. It makes me wonder what side Powell's working on, because if he wanted to counter Trump, he wanted to try to make their central bank, relevant, why would he be too little, too late, exactly as Trump describes him every single time,
Yes.
unless he's actually there to dismantle it? I'm just asking the question because there's a lot of things that don't make sense about the way this plays out. Why not come through with a big rate cut, get everybody excited? Oh yeah, we're for the people, and defy Trump. No, instead, he does exactly what Trump says he's going to do, which is too little, too late. And what's interesting about bringing that rate down slowly is it actually is preventing another resurge of inflation. Because if you brought it down too fast, you'd have people going out and buying heavily again. Home prices would probably escalate instead of de-escalate, and things like this. So I actually think there's a strategy that we're watching play out here, where he continues to malign the Fed, and they continue to do everything he says they're going to do with exactness. And ultimately, the people just get more tired of it and they're ready to be done with it. And I think all of that is designed to build everybody up to be, say goodbye to the Federal Reserve. I think they're going to be happy to do that. I'd love to see it go away by next May. Will we have somebody in there for a short period of time? Yeah, perhaps. But you have to remember, Powell was put there by Trump in his first term. And then he maintained that position during Biden. Why did he choose that? And then all these little, Powell's this and the fake war between each other. I'm sorry. Something's contrived there. And so it seems to me like it's playing out exactly the way the Patriots want it to play out. And it's not for you and I, John. This is a dramatization for everybody asleep. You have to
Absolutely.
give them a story that's believable that they'll just go along with you. I mean, and that's ultimately where we are.
Understood. It's part of the operation. I want to talk about 1871 very briefly. I'm going to move us forward to something very important. Then we're going to bring on Bill Armour and then have a roundtable discussion. So 1871, for those that don't know, and most of our viewers do, but we have a lot of new folks coming in. And for those folks, President Lincoln had to pay the debts of the war and went to bed. This is a layman's version of it, with London, the Rothschild dynasty, if you will, and war bonds, and the U.S. corporation was formed, and we've basically been in a bankruptcy since. And now that's all been unwound. As initially, we've known about it for years. I've been reporting on it for years, but officially from Dr. Jan Halper Hayes at Great Britain News 3 years back, reported it. She serves on the Department of Defense task force, reported the exact same story of what actually happened in 1871 and how we've severed that agreement as we restore our constitutional republic. So, folks, put that over here. Now I'm going to mention something else. I'm going to place a few things there and then have Will comment. We spoke about recently, Lynn Wood, who I met many years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, reported initially the plane loads of gold, 650 planes or something of the sort, of pallets of gold taken out of the underground cities and tunnels of the Vatican. Put that in your pending box, folks. Then we had reported on this broadcast and other shows I've produced by Juan O'Savin of the 17,000 pallets of cash with $100 million on each pallet that his team and his eyes have physically seen, in addition to a speculative amount of 100,000 pallets with $100 million on each, which was being orchestrated by the global cabal, the deep state, if you will, to unload this on the market, collapse the currency into hyperinflation, basically bankrupt you and me, and move us into a central bank digital currency. Thank goodness that's in the process of being thwarted. So put that in your pending basket. Then we have $18 trillion, as I understand. Some say 20. Pick a number. When you're in 18 trillion, 20 trillion, doesn't matter. 18 or 20 trillion dollars worth of tariff income, thanks to President Donald J. Trump, coming into the United States of America. And lastly, we've got, thank goodness our brain can hold a lot of things in the pending basket, because I'm going to wrap this up here. We have exploration in oil and gas now, with most of the crazy restrictions being lifted. We have this massive boom in AI and AI-related companies and robotics. We have the Sovereign Wealth Fund, first dividend check coming to us, we believe, in June or July, based on what the president has stated. We have the tradable birth certificate situation of how much money has been made by the deep state against all of our lives being traded on the market. Fraudulent taxation our entire lives based on the Federal Reserve and IRS, which are unconstitutional and illegal. So tell us now, with all of these things sitting in our minds pending basket, how do you speculate on the repatriation and the 160 trillion I failed to mention in the St. Germain Trust? That's a lot of wealth. And the 38 trillion in the Federal Reserve, our federal debt that we have been alerted to by the president and by Elon Musk, that the majority of that debt, due to the fraudulent activities of the Federal Reserve itself, will not end up on the balance sheet of America. With all that incredible news of wealth repositioning and identifying and so forth and so on, I've come to understand that the gold that's been captured, I believe, is in Cheyenne Mountain, probably the safest place on planet Earth. And I'm also told in a military location in Reno, Nevada. You can refute that, you can comment on that if you choose, but taking all of that and the fact that we're told we're getting a dividend check, well, excuse me, folks, a dividend, as I understand, and Will, you're far more skilled in this than I am, a dividend is sort of a profit being spit out from an investment that one would own. Well, what is the investment we own? Our country. We're giving you back your country. So if that's a dividend from a sovereign wealth fund, from all this wealth that's coming back, tell us about repatriation of wealth coming to America and we the people, and correct me on anything that I've just laid out to set up this question.
Well, the repatriation's been ongoing for some time. You indicated at first that Trump brought back plane loads of gold. One of the interesting things is during the cover of COVID, I'll call it that, was when that operation took place. And it actually was part of Operation Airbridge. The cover story was that they're bringing personal protective equipment to America, gloves, masks, this type of thing, to fight the pandemic. But really what you had was these airplanes flying the gold back. Now, the Vatican, the one thing that they were very good at is record keeping. And they had perfect records of every country they took it from. Okay. So it wasn't that difficult to know where to send it in terms of giving it back. So it's very interesting what occurred there. The formation of a sovereign wealth fund for the United States is really about recapturing all of the assets of the country within its borders and now putting that into a monetizable format. It doesn't matter if it's BLM land, if it's the national parks, if it's even the 100 acres off the coast around the country that the country claims. Those are filled with oil leases, with mining leases, with all that income was going somewhere. Supposedly it went to the Department of Interior, but it was a little bit crazy as to where was the money really going. So now that it's been all of those properties now have been amalgamated under the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Now, when they issue an oil lease in Alaska and start drilling there, that now becomes income to the country. And in other words, these assets become monetized like a business to bring income in. And that has a dramatic result in reducing, or as Trump says, eliminating in the very near future income tax. He expects it to be eliminated. He says it will be tariff, but it's far more than tariff. It's not just tariff, it's also the monetization of the very assets of the country. So you have a combination of things that are actually unfolding right now as we speak, and have been for months and will continue for some time as we maximize the potential of these assets.
So well said. Thank you for taking all of the overwhelmingness I put out there for everyone to stuff in our heads and make sense of that. Will, please stand by as you stated you could. I appreciate it. In the digital green room, we'll have you on in just a few minutes to sort of have a discussion with Bill Armour and myself. Bill Armour has built a unique career combining vocational ministry and expertise in precious metals industry, equipping him to bridge faith-based perspectives with practical wisdom in stewardship and in business. Originally from Tucson, Arizona, Bill Armour spent 8 years serving in the U.S. Army Reserves. Thereafter, he went on to attend Azusa Pacific University, a Christian school in Southern California, with a focus in Christian ministry and biblical studies. I love the name of the firm, Genesis Metals. Bill is a precious metals expert and the director at Genesis Gold. Please welcome back to the GFR our good friend, Bill Armour.
Hey, great to be back.
Hey, Bill, your beard is getting longer and longer since we've met. Well done. Good to see you.
Well, Christmas is coming up and I've got little ones, so someone's got to play Santa.
Very good. Yeah, that's a great thing to do. The kids love it. I remember years ago when I lived in Colorado, this will sound a little crazy, everybody, but I had sort of an elevator chute in the house, mainly for groceries from the garage up to the third floor. I had a beautiful home back there on 4 private acres many years ago. And I had my nieces and my family, and this is my mother's last Christmas before she passed on. So I was happy that I was able to bring the family together from all over the country to spend a week. And it was winter wonderland in Colorado for Christmas. And we had stage for the children, Santa Claus in full gear, show up out of the elevator with all kinds of gifts for the kids. So it's a wonderful time of the year, and we will be celebrating Christmas. Bill, the definition of inflation, in one could say, in part, is an increase in the money supply, not chasing enough goods and services. All right. I believe, and I'd like you to weigh in on this, that the Federal Reserve creates the inflation. It's not necessarily, and I can stand to be corrected, it's not necessarily the ebb and flow of basics of the economy, supply and demand and these sort of elements that make an economy. To me, as I've looked at it, and I'm not an expert in this area, but I have common sense, and it seems to me that inflation is solely or largely created by Fed policy. In my oversimplification, the Federal Reserve with 200 board of governors or whatever it is, all they really do is increase or decrease the money supply, which creates or not creates inflation. And they increase or decrease the money supply. And I forgot the other main thing that they do. You can fill in the blanks in a moment. But so it seems to me that inflation is not a product of economic ebb and flow and activity, but rather a Fed policy. Is it a fair statement to say that once the global financial reset settles in, which we've been talking about with Will just a moment ago, would we ever see inflation again? That's the question.
Yeah, great question. So first off, a small, tiny amount of inflation is normal and somewhat even healthy because it encourages people to utilize their funds in a way that is productive for the economy as opposed to just setting it there and not using it. So a tiny amount is somewhat useful. Generally, people agree with that in higher economic discussion. However, inflation, as we understand it, in the ways that we talk about it in our everyday lives, is completely a choice, and no one would really even disagree. Even the most pro print money advocates would not disagree that inflation as we experience it is absolutely a choice. And I'll give some context on the choices that have been made. So in 2020, middle of 2020 to end of 21, so through the whole COVID nonsense there, the Fed drove about $6.4 trillion in an increase in M2. And M2, for people who don't know what that is just basically all of the dollars we can add up between savings account, cash, a couple different things, but basically all of the cash equivalents. That represented, so again, 6.4 trillion, a 40% increase in the money supply. So again, just common sense, using our brains here. If all of a sudden here, let's say there's $100 in circulation, and now all of a sudden there's $140, the money that you had is now virtually, just by common sense, 40% less value. So just in the course of about 18 months, the money that you had was devalued by 40%. And to reframe that, because people understand when they see it on a paycheck or whatnot, they see a tax, they get that. But the Fed operates as really as an invisible tax, in that they just took 40% of all the wealth here that people had and put that in their pocket, and they didn't require reaching into your bank account and pulling it out. All it required was the creation out of thin air of all of the money. So they took 40% of all money that U.S. citizens had, and they put that in their pocket. So as of today, you see this, and we can just look back, these waves of inflation, 7%, 6.5%, 5%, multiple years of high above 5% inflation. We're still above, right at 3%. But this is all just as that money goes into the system, as they spend that money basically, and it goes into the system, that's where you eventually see your dollars worth less. So we're still feeling the effects of the Biden regime. And that's the part that I try to drive home to people, is there's nothing you can do really in a lot of ways to pull that money out. At least it's not as easy as it seems. The government isn't just reaching in there to everyone's accounts, and taking 40% of the money back out of the system, because then they'd rob you 80%. So ultimately what happens is you can't reverse in that way what's already been done. So absolutely, it is policy. It's a policy decision. The Fed's balance sheet is 10 times larger than it was before 2008. 2008 acted as a catalyst for major banks and financial institutions and the Fed to structure power here, with which they've yielded over the last 15 or so years. So it's policy driven. It's absolutely a choice. To the second part of your question there, in regards to the GFR, and would we see inflation? If we see inflation, so right now we see, anywhere from 3 to 5% annually is what we've been at recently. We're talking about maybe 0.25% inflation, which, over the course of 25 years, you might see your money devalued by, 5 or 10%, or not even. So we're talking about very, very nominal. And that's, if you do anything with that money, you're going to outpace inflation, massively. So, and that inflation there, that tiny, tiny amount, is to encourage massive, companies and whatnot to not sit on their money for 10, 20 years. It incentivizes them a little bit to do something. However, that incentive right now it's not an incentive. It's a cane that they're using to steal, to rake people over the coals and steal from. So it is a little different. I would say you can expect very, very minuscule inflation. Again, really, really tiny, but in the way that we understand it in just everyday life, that things are getting so much more expensive. No, you'll be able to look back 20 years in the past and say, oh, I guess, this cheeseburger cost $1 more than it did 25 years ago. Oh, well, but it's not such a significant difference in the way that we're used to it.
So well said. Thank you very much. And this should be a massive sigh of relief for everyone listening to this broadcast. We have so much good things to look forward to. We spent our whole life being taxed and inflated into oblivion, which is why we've been very difficult to get ahead. And most people, again, trying to figure out how they're going to buy lunch today. These days are coming to an end when you factor in the repatriation of wealth, those dividends that are coming back from this U.S. Constitutional Republic that's being restored. We've got some happy days coming down the line. I remember now the other broad thing, Bill, that the Federal Reserve does: raise and lower interest rates was the other. So increase and decrease the money supply, which you've reiterated that is what causes inflation by design, and then raising or lowering the interest rates is one of the mechanisms by which they help create or not create inflation. All of this is coming to an end. It makes Bernie Madoff look like child's play when you look at the amount of capital that he destroyed people's lives with. Look at what this Federal Reserve has been doing to us for 115 years. I mean, the numbers are astronomical. It is wonderful that it's coming to an end. So let's see, where else can we take this? Okay, so interest rates have been hurting us. The Trump economy, in spite of that, has accomplished quite a bit during his election here in 2024. So now with a new Fed chairman, perhaps coming in before the Federal Reserve is completely dismantled, the Fed powers restored back to we the people is going to happen via the U.S. Treasury, as I understand it, returning the power back to us. What will this do for the economy, and what will this do for precious metals, both gold and silver, once we get across this, name of the show, transition, surviving and thriving the transition of this global financial reset? When we get to the other side of the days of old of the Federal Reserve, and new policies being put back in place by we the people via President Trump and the U.S. Treasury, what will this do for the economy? What will this do for precious metals, both gold and silver, and why? Listen up, folks.
Yeah, I would say the first piece is one that we just covered, and that is less inflation. In fact, almost literally zero inflation. So that's I would say that's the first and immediate thing you will feel, is that you'll be able to look 5 years back and say your dollar is, maybe not your dollar, but your whatever that currency that we're using, however we title it, is actually going to be the same or almost exactly the same value as it was 5 years ago. So that's the first piece I would point out. The second one is it will kill this artificial boom bust. If people pay attention and they look through our markets over the last 40 years or so, you start to see that we get these boom bust cycles, and initially they're longer. We go from about the 80s or so into 2000 is 20 years, and then you go 2000 to 2008, and then suddenly we're getting these more and more quicker, faster. The cycles get tighter and tighter, and in fact the cuts get deeper. Right, so the massive sell-offs are bigger. So that just it'll smooth that out, because again, there's not funny money going around that's moving in and propping up and all sorts of things. So it'll smooth out sort of the boom bust cycles that we've become so accustomed to, which is generally a really, really good thing, because that's not doing anything for the average American. Maybe if you are in, and able to effectively, one of the things they'll do is they would crash, stocks, the economy and whatnot. And people that had to live would be forced to sell assets far below what they were worth. And obviously they would profit on that. They would reclaim assets at that point during these bust cycles. And then they would drive them up and they would crash them down. So that cycle is one that we've seen for the last 45 years. And so that will go away as well, at least in the way that we know it. Again, things go up and down in price, that's normal. But these cycles, these massive boom bust cycles will go away as we know them. Obviously, the debt, that's a foregone conclusion. We get a balanced budget, we get things in order there. So that's one I don't think I have to cover too much. In terms of physical gold and silver, and actually even on the market in general, when this first occurs, the first part will be stabilizing to the new system, right? Because that's a pretty big off-ramp into something new. So likely you're going to see a lot of turbulence in markets, bonds, all sorts of assets. And I know we've talked at length about that'll be a bumpy road. During that process, gold, silver, precious metals will do extremely well. You've got gold that then becomes the asset that backs the asset-backed currency. So that tends to get, obviously, people will be purchasing that up. That drives a tremendous amount of demand onto a very limited amount of supply. On the silver side, similar issue there. So again, increasing the demand of these two items are fine and driving up price there. So you're going to see, again, a lot of value rotate out of paper assets and into physical gold and silver would be the biggest side on that.
Excellent. Well, thanks a lot, Bill. Stay right where you are. We're going to bring on Will Barney to join our conversation, to our producer. There he is. Welcome back, Will. Will and Bill, you gentlemen know each other. This is the Will and Bill segment
to
of
be
the
back.
show.
Good to see you
Thank
again,
you.
Will.
Yeah.
Let me raise this, and you gentlemen engage in a discussion, and I may chime in and move us around the chessboard a little bit. But gold is up year to date, and you guys can correct me or fine tune the number if need be. I think about 60% year to date as we come concluding 2025 now. And silver, I believe, is over 100% at this point. I think it was closed at $65, $66 yesterday. Today. I'm in Thailand. I believe these are obviously huge moves. Can you clarify these numbers, number one? And we'll start with Bill, then we'll go to Will. What are the contributing factors for this historic, massive move continuing growth? This isn't a one spike only. Now it's going to come down. What are the contributing factors, Bill, for this historic, massive, continuing growth in both gold and silver? And then we'll have Will weigh in.
Sure. So I would say on the gold side, it's the age-old culprits here. It's debt, it's central bank buying, it's fiscal stress, geopolitics, falling real yields. So, I mean, any number of these things are contributing. In fact, all of them are. It's not just one thing. If I were to point to maybe the one that I noticed the most, it's really just that central bank buying. These are numbers here because we've seen shaky economies before and gold's reacted to that. But the one thing that we've never seen, at least not in the level that we're seeing it right now, is central bank buying across the world, just gobbling up gold. It's almost like a vacuum here for gold, but we're seeing the same on silver, and that's why you've seen gold rise tremendously. But silver is now at about 120 to 130% right in there, depending on the day, just in the last 12 months. So tremendous growth there, and that's same reasons for gold, covering some of the difference there. But the other one again is that structural issue of the actual production, the availability of silver. And I just want to take a quick second, kind of go off script and just read something that popped up today that I found very, very interesting. And so it's since been, I'll preface all of this actually with this has since been deleted off the CFTC website. It was there earlier, it's now gone. So you can, interpret why that is, whether they've changed their mind, whether they don't want the publicity of it. I mean, there's any number of things, could be a different thing. So take this with a grain of salt, but this was published. So it said there was on the calendar for the CFTC, Emergency Commission meeting, December 19th, 9 a.m., closed session, topic market stabilization measures for precious metals complex. Now, for people that heard that and didn't really know what that's referring to, back in the 80s, they had the Hunt Brothers squeeze, the silver squeeze, Hunt Brothers bought up about a third of all the above ground silver, and the paper contracts, the banks were getting crushed, and they were in danger of insolvency. So what they did was they froze the ability, this is the way the government and banks got out of this, is they froze the ability to sell paper contracts. So you could, to buy paper contracts. You could only sell paper contracts, you couldn't buy them. So that is the same, almost identical language they used back then. Now the difference, because people will say, oh man, is this really bad news for silver? No. This is actually, and this is why I think maybe it's gotten taken down. This would be the greatest thing for silver. If you remember a while back, we had the decoupling with the backwardation that people may remember, where the futures price and the physical price, the spot price of silver was differentiating. So there is becoming, in the past, that's not the case because there wasn't this demand on silver. So if paper silver went down, physical silver went down along with it. And that was how the Hunt Brothers kind of came on the other end of this. At this point, though, what would happen is the opposite. It's kind of like it's the Chernobyl of this. And what happened with Chernobyl, they were trying to cool the reactors. It had the opposite effect, and obviously it blew up. So this would be the Chernobyl of the silver markets, in that all of a sudden, banks would hope that silver prices would go down. However, they wouldn't, because the demand on silver is still there. So everyone that has a silver contract that's not getting filled would then say, okay, well, this is useless, and then be forced to go buy physical silver that same day. We would see the demand on physical silver 100x overnight, because that's about the difference between contracts on physical silver to paper silver to physical silver. So we would see this massive explosion of demand, and there's not the above ground silver currently. It's not held by just one person. It's spread out across many people, many banks, etc. So you would see immediately this implosion or explosion, I should say, in the price of silver in a way we've never seen. I tend to believe, my personal thoughts are that this was initially an idea of how to keep banks solvent that were looking like they may fail. JP Morgan would be one that is in a massive silver short position, so they're hoping this doesn't happen. This may have been talked about as a way to save them, but then as they looked back at it more, they realized this would just implode. So all of this to say, whether this does or does, if it does happen, great, that's tremendous. If it doesn't happen, all it shows here is that there are people behind the scenes that have no idea how to deal with silver as it is right now. So I'll just end with that. I know that was a little off topic, but I did want to bring that up.
No, that's great stuff. I'm going to comment real quick and go right over to Will Barney. I can't wait to weigh in on this. Folks, the way I see this from the layman's viewpoint, what Bill just walked us through, we caught him. We got him. And the master chess player at the helm in the executive branch and the commander-in-chief is going to make that final gotcha checkmate move because we caught them. And now the banks, from when you just described, trying to get as much gold as they can, well, while that's their last attempt, that only helps where we're heading. So that's how we got them there. And the second thing is this backwardation issue that you've talked about with the price differential between the spot price and the futures contracts. We got them there. Boy, we got them going. And I'm getting chills and celebrating this. Will, why don't you ground me and our audience and contribute to the discussion?
Well, Bill's correct in everything that he's saying. In fact, we had this actually play out at the top of this week when JP Morgan themselves finally cried uncle and gave up all their short positions. They just took it in the shorts. And not only did they just pay out all their positions, which was very expensive to do, by the way, they went long on silver. They went the opposite direction on 750 million ounces. This is all part of desperation, okay, to hold on to what's coming, because metals, whether it be gold or the silver, collapse the Federal Reserve when the entire thing's baked on fiat. If you can create money with a mouse click, what do you do when there's an alternative to that that's actually backed by something, right?
Amen.
You're going to have a problem. And so you can't keep that up. And the differential you talked about between paper and between physical, that is huge. If you look at the last 5 years, we've run a deficit in terms of demand to what the supply is coming out of the ground, which means for the last 5 years, we've been draining reserves just to meet the demand that people are buying it up at. Well, you can't do that forever. Eventually, there's no reserves left, and we're nearing that point right now. So that's what's putting this upward pressure. We were $66 today, as you said, John, earlier. This is incredible. $66. Is it going to stop there? No, it's not going to stop there, because there's nothing to keep it moving. All of the fundamentals say demand has not slowed. It has only increased. And as the price drives up, it creates further desperation for people. If they're holding paper, they're going to go after physical. If you're not holding physical and you see the price going up, you want to get it before it's gone, because it's got to move. And silver particularly, I expect to see gold continue to rise for various reasons, but silver is just massively suppressed. I mean, its value is just completely out of line. It shouldn't be at 80-1 to gold. Not even close. I mean, we should be at least within 20-1. I mean, what's going on here? So we have, if you look back thousands of years, you have historical numbers. That's usually always been somewhere. I think the lowest was maybe 7-1 and high end of maybe 20-1. But if that's your average over thousands of years, and somebody should be saying something's wrong when it's 80-1, right? It's been manipulated. And now you have a big manipulator, JP Morgan, who's saying, forget it. We're never going to get ahead of this. They just bit the bullet, said, let's pay it off and then let's move on. And so I expect that we may see something similar coming from Bank of America soon. We'll keep an eye on that because they're really taking it in the shorts too. Every dollar it raises is just killing them right now. And they're going to have to probably do the same thing JP Morgan did and just say, all right, we're out. We can't keep doing this. So So this is going to be interesting as we go forward. Now, you guys talked about inflation. I just want to make one little comment about inflation because I think it's fascinating. In the current system that we have right now, inflation has been completely run away. And it is, I agree with what Bill said. It's been policy. Absolutely. He was spot on when he said that. If you can create $1 trillion and you did nothing but push a button on a mouse, click, and you create $1 trillion, you didn't put anything of value up for it. You didn't have to pull it out of your back shed and say, well, I got a vault back there. I'll pull the value out of there. You just collect it with a click of a mouse, and then you go and you say, all right, American public, you should pay us back with your sweat and your tears and your hard work, your 40 hours a week to pay this back when we had no basis in it. It's the very definition of fraud, okay, to be honest. And I know that's just direct to say it, but I don't know how else you can call it. So that's been going on for far too long. Now we have this transition going on to an asset-backed currency, where we expect at some point here, the Treasury is going to make an announcement and do what Abraham Lincoln did, and that is issue money backed by the government. But it's not just the government, it's the assets of the government. It's not, Abraham Lincoln just said good faith of the government. That's all it was with the greenbacks. This is going to be different. Mm-hmm. This is going to be backed by all of the assets we talked about that's held in that sovereign wealth fund. And what happens with those assets? Do you think those assets are going to stay the same value, or in 20 years, are they going to be worth more? I can guarantee you it's going to be worth more. And not only is it will be worth more, the inflow and the cash flow coming from that is going to be higher. So it actually will have a de-inflation aspect to this. You switch to a currency backed by assets, and the asset backing that continues to increase in value over the next 10 years. The U.S. debt clock is projecting a possibility of a 25 to 30% increase in value of the money just because of that, because it's a dividend dollar. It's a dividend from the assets of the country. This is going to be unlike anything we've ever seen. I don't think we can even predict the explosion of prosperity it's going to be unleashed here, because you're going to have people are going to feel good. They're going to feel good about what's happening. They're going to be investing in things that maybe they wouldn't have done before because they were worried about the inflationary aspect, and they're going to start going forward. And I think you're going to see an expansion in a great way over the next 10 to 20 years.
Real quick, and we'll have Bill weigh in as well, but Will, great differentiation that you've brought to my and our audience's attention, the comparison between what Lincoln did, and thank goodness he did what he did. He was a great president. But the comparison of good faith and credit based on now good faith and credit, but asset backed by the assets of this country. That's a great point to raise. A couple of quick comments will go to Bill. You talked about the criminal cartel aspect of the Federal Reserve. I would just add this. They come to the table with no skin in the game whatsoever. No risk whatsoever. We give them our money. They fractional reserve lend it out, instantly causing inflation. It's like driving your brand new car off the lot and it's already lost $10,000 worth of value. That is so well said. And so, Bill, weigh in anywhere you want on the discussion we're having here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's, and this is the whole context of the show, but people should be very excited. We should see what's going on, and you're starting to see more and more. We're winning. And every day we're seeing these victories and these wins, and they're being, people are talking about them in a way. I mean, 10, 12 years ago, it really felt like we were in a hole we'd never get out of. And now we are really at a point here where we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And I sit back sometimes, lay in bed, and I'll just look at my wife and say, we're almost there. 10 years ago, we thought we may never get out of this. And so sometimes I just take a step back as we're talking and do kind of have that epiphany of really how close we are and how tremendous this journey has been.
Faith, hope, and love. Hope has been restored in the hearts and minds and spirit and the cellular structure of all our brothers and sisters throughout this world. We just got to get the rest of them to listen to this show and come on aboard for the ride of our lifetime, because it is happening. It's God ordained, and we've got the right people in place precision military operation, especially precision at this late stage of the game. I want to talk briefly. We got to wind the show down. It's been a little bit extended. Will, you spoke about, well, both Will and Bill, we've been speaking about the mechanics of silver and what's been going on. You talked, Will, about the 80 to 1, 80 ounces of silver to buy an ounce of gold situation. Let's talk about this. And we'll start with Bill. We'll go to Will on a ratio trade strategy that a precious metals dealer could deploy and advise through consultation and education their client base, those that have acquired gold and silver, let's say through your firm or any firm. Ratio trade. When do we speculate that it'll come down to some historical norm where it is an 80 to 1? When do we and can we forecast when that might happen? What will we see some signs? And then what would a ratio trade be for the benefit of those that would have over allocated into silver today? What might happen? We'll take it with Bill and we'll go to Will.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now, obviously, most people want to allocate, much heavier in silver for obvious reasons. And just getting back to where we expect it to go, I, as well as most people, expect it to overshoot its true value in the more near term. So we talk about, let's say $150, could be higher, could be, as high as $200, depending on what gold does. But I expect it generally to overshoot that. And that's, again, as we get to that point where other people are squeezed out, so it overshoots the true value. And then that would be a great part there when it's above that sort of true value, when you may want to reallocate some of that. You're going to be so far up on silver. And gold is much more of the tortoise in this analogy than the tortoise and the hare. So you may want to say, okay, well, silver has done incredibly well for me, but it may even be a little overvalued right now. And so then you take some of what you've got in silver, you can absolutely reallocate back into gold. So it really depends on kind of the financial system that we're in. If we really, truly, as we see things, and I know, and I really appreciate that Will has talked about sort of the historic 10 to 1-ish ratio, because when I often talk about people, I'm talking in the much more near term of the modern financial system, which has been so broken for so long. So when I use numbers like 30 to 1 or so, that's in the very modern financial world we speak of. When we talk about a real economy, we're talking multiple hundreds of years ago. We are talking around that 10 to 1 multiple, and I think that those are the numbers we could be talking about. When you talk about silver at that point, you're talking silver at 400 an ounce. So you get to that point, maybe you get above that, and then at that, and obviously during this portion, we don't expect gold to just do nothing, but there's a portion there where maybe it gets to 550 or something like that, and you say, what, maybe it's the true value is 450, and so you want to reallocate some of that back over to gold. That's absolutely something people can do. It's part of strategies here, but in the meantime, that's why people are allocating so heavy into the silver, is because every person in their right minds understands the dilemma that we're facing with silver, the supply issues. That's why it's on the 2026 strategic reserve list. So everyone understands this and how they're going to get their hands on that silver. And so you want the thing that is going to be ultra contested here in the next couple of years.
Excellent. Will,
That's
any
awesome.
comments on the ratio trade? Yeah.
It's interesting when you look at, I come from a financial background. I know you do too as well, John. You were in wealth management and stuff for some time. And here's the thing. In the past, you always looked at gold and silver as a very poor performer. They weren't great, okay? They were lousy to bet on in terms of gain, right? But they were fantastic to at least hold something. If you were worried about a loss, that was your backup, right? Go into gold and silver. What we've seen over the last 2 years is unlike anything that's been done. You're talking about a 200+% increase in 2 years. I mean, has anybody ever seen that in the silver market? No, not ever. Not in that short a period of time. So it's really fascinating what's happening right now. And normally I would say, yeah, metals is to protect wealth, to hold wealth. It's not really to grow it. You use other investments for growing, right? However, this is defying all logic right now. And I think it's only because it was suppressed down to such such a high ratio, its number was so low that it has to go somewhere, and that's only up. It can only go up. Now it's interesting when you look at what happens with a slingshot is when those inventories shrink and they get tighter and tighter and tighter. Then you have this upward push that even gets further, and you could have it. We talked about a decent ratio should be what 400 an ounce, so that maybe a 10-to-1. But what if it shoots beyond that and it goes to 800? Well, I can guarantee you the smart guy is going to be there and he's going to be, Bill, I need some gold. I'll trade you silver right now. Okay. Because he knows it's going to come back into a proper alignment. Sure. Right. So it's for those that are wise, they're watching silver. They know it can't go down. It can only go up, at least into a proper structure in terms of ratio with gold and silver. And so I think some people are going to play that. Now, silver's an interesting thing, different from gold. Gold, there's a lot more gold out there than people know. Okay, there's plenty of inventory of gold. The challenge with silver is that it's an industrial metal. It's being used in electric cars and in electronics and all these other things. It's used in missiles and defense equipment and everything else. So it's being consumed in these products, whereas gold is mainly just sitting in vaults, right? It's not being used up, consumed. There's a portion going to jewelry, but that's just such a small piece of it. So silver is just another anomaly because it's being consumed, it's being used, and yet the inventories are shrinking. So I really think there's a possibility for that metal in particular to slingshot and go beyond the ratio for a short period of time before settling back. And that's just because of the dynamics of what's happening here.
Yeah. Well said. I just want to mention this. Go ahead, Bill. Go ahead.
I was just going to touch. Yeah. And I just want to, because you've said this and Juan has said this, and I agree entirely. And that's that, in a lot of ways, gold and silver, it doesn't produce anything. It's not like it's out there, growing a company or whatnot. So you would think of it in the past, and maybe not particularly gold, silver. At least now we have the industrial side that is, and gold to a lesser degree, but silver especially. But the way that I have always talked to people, and so I love the way you said this, is I look at gold and silver as a vehicle. And it's a vehicle that's taking you from point A to point B. And you may, obviously, if you're traveling, sometimes use a plane, sometimes use a boat, sometimes use a car. But right now, maybe you're crossing, this financial transition is an ocean, and you need a boat. And that's what gold and silver is. But once we're across that, obviously you may shift and you may say, okay, I need a car now. But it presents a really unique time in our history when gold and silver is responding to that. And that's why we're seeing this growth, is because it's responding to the fact that a lot of people need boats right now.
Well said. This is to our audience. There's a lot of doom and gloom out there, and we know, according to Juan and other military folks I interview, we may not have yet had our near-death experience because a lot of things are yet to be revealed. That'll be rather concerning to the target audience. But we'll get through that, and we'll get through that successfully, and we'll clean up the mess later. But this is a wonderful time to be alive. There's so many good things happening. I want to say this to our viewers. This is your AOL moment. You think back, I don't know, whatever it was, 30 years ago, when we were saying to ourselves, I'm never going to buy anything on the internet. What's the internet? You mean you can go click a button and put my credit card on there? What are you kidding me? Right? Well, I was one of those guys. I mean, I was laughing at people. I wouldn't even, but people started to buy AOL at that time, and we know what that turned out to. This is your AOL moment when it comes to crypto, and you've gotten some great education on this broadcast from Will on that, as well as your AOL moment in both gold and silver. It is not too late. In fact, even though we've gone this far, this is the beginning. And so, and thanks to Bill and Will driving those points home. Folks, this is the AOL moment. So take advantage of it. And I'm going to talk about a few different ways you can do that and help pave a yellow brick road for you to get there as I wrap up this show in a minute. I want to thank Will Barney very much for your knowledge and expertise in the world you come from, in the world you're in, and where the world you're heading into. Tell people how they can follow you beyond this broadcast, which you appear on every other week, website and so forth. Thanks a lot, Will Barney. Go ahead.
You can find us on our website. It's EnochGS, ENOCHGS.com. That is our website. Not on there, you'll find all the other, go to the contact us page and you'll see the X.com and the True Social and Rumble and all the other channels that are there so that you can follow our work. Really, to give everybody just a 30-second overview, who we are, what do we do? We are a humanitarian project company. So we are building a massive digital data infrastructure system. I'm talking very large scale that allows us to run humanitarian projects across the world, launching thousands per year, and do it with privacy and security. And everything is at the highest level of security. We're a military grade plus system, and we're putting this together so that projects have a future where they won't be spied on, they won't be maligned in any way, and they can actually see their projects come to fruition. So we're all about the launching and management of projects. That's what the whole system is about. Of course, we have hundreds of our own projects, which is how we got into doing the infrastructure, is we needed a way to manage it. And the other options out there just are not secure. Look at every cloud system out there, and it's scary how unsecure it is. It's absolutely scary. So we wanted to build something that we could use into the future, and everybody could feel safe and secure, and that they could do their good works around the world. So go to EnochGS.com. It stands for Enoch Global Services, and you can find out everything about that on the website. Thanks.
Brilliant work. Thank you. My first introduction, because I hadn't been to the website yet. I'll go there now, and I appreciate you making that announcement. In fact, next time you're on this broadcast, let's launch into that in more detail. Let's give us some updates. Let's feature the website on the screen. Let's educate our audience about this great work you and presumably you have a team, of course, getting this stuff done. Thank you very much, Will Barney. Thank you for being here. Great value. You know, these two gentlemen are voices of our time, in my opinion, among others, in the financial sector, at least as we bring it out here on this show, providing extraordinary value to anyone with ears to listen and eyes to see. Thank you, Will Barney. Bill, stay on the screen. Let's go full screen with Bill. I want to conclude this broadcast with Bill on a very important subject, precious metals deals. This is a warning for everyone because we've learned about some incredible information. We've peeled the curtain back. We've seen a lot of things, a lot of revelations, and a lot of great news. All right. Now, I'm not oblivious to the fact that we've got dangers and we're all struggling. I get all that, but it's coming to an end. Remember, faith, hope, and love? I'm the hope guy. All right. So, Bill, precious metals deals, as you well know in your competitive field, that have very little regulation. And I know firsthand, secondhand, that there's going to be some regulation coming down the pike a year or two down the road. We'll talk about that at another broadcast because time's running out. But precious metals dealers have very little regulation right now. Sure, there are RICO laws and you can't buy it with cash and so forth. But what are some of the pitfalls? And I know there's a lot. And by the way, folks, if you want to get the rest of the a lot, go to wealthcoachuniversity.com, check out the 10 free modules, go to the precious metals one, and you'll understand some more of the pitfalls, and Bill knows them very well. But highlight just a few of the key things, Bill, if you will, to alert our viewers before they go into the precious metals world. What are some of the pitfalls that are created clandestinely oftentimes by a lot of precious metals firms that you want to alert them to, and how your firm differs?
Yeah, absolutely. So a few that come to mind right off the top would be, one is the point of sale. So you purchase the metals, and then from that point on, and they may promise you, that we're going to be your best friend. We're going to talk to you about this for years and years to come. And the second you finish that sale, you are a second-class citizen. You will never really be talked to again. Maybe you'll be pawned off to someone else, but basically that's the end. And which, obviously, if you're going to precious metals, oftentimes you're relying on having that, that contact there for a variety of different things. So it comes as quite a shock. I talk to people all the time. They'll reach out to Genesis and they'll say, can you help us with this? Because we worked with this company over here, and they don't talk to us anymore. So that would be the first piece there as a major pitfall. And I see that across a lot of companies. That is one way that we are very different, in that we have a continued. In fact, my December is one of the busiest times of the year. And generally, it's just because we're doing, portfolio. We're looking through, what people have done for the year. Maybe they want to change from silver to gold or gold to silver, whatever it might be, or RMDs, all of these different things. But I'm talking with, tons and tons of clients here every day. I've got appointments all through December. So that's my December. And anyone I work with, that's something that they get out of me, is that, I'm in contact with them, and that's an ongoing relationship. The next thing I would highlight there is when you're actually purchasing the metals. So often, you'll see things like, and don't get me wrong, there's a place people can own, numismatic, semi-numismatic things. There's a place for that. But one of the things I'll see a lot is people will come in and they'll have, their entire portfolio in, collectible proof coins. Basically, really what they are, proof coins, just for people that aren't aware, they're stamped, multiple times there. They look very glossy. They're very beautiful to look at. Now, does that mean that you should pay a very, very, very substantial premium to have your entire portfolio in these collector coins? Absolutely not. Most of the people that I talk to don't want that. But, in fact, people will call and ask for a second opinion about metals they've purchased. And they say, I didn't want these collector coins. That's not what I was looking for. But there was a slick salesman that told me this was the best thing since sliced bread, and I kind of got duped into it. So that's one thing, is always just the products here is, what is being touted, what is being put in front of you. You really have to educate yourself. And I would say the way that we're different is we do a comprehensive education on, what are all of these different things you're seeing? What are the different, why one, why coins, why bars, why small denomination, why large denomination? What are the pros and cons? And people can make whatever decision they determine. Some people want large denomination bars. Some people, I want small denomination silver, for instance, because that's a little more barterable in case things go sideways. So having that education and being able to make a decision that actually fits you versus someone behind a desk telling you this is what you're getting, take my word for it, don't ask any questions. I think that that's the thing that people, when they talk with me and they've worked with a metals company before, is they're always shocked by that difference of saying, I actually got what I wanted here versus what someone told me to get. And then the final one I would point out is just that most people assume that once they've purchased metals, that's the end of it. But oftentimes, many of these companies will charge significant amounts on the buyback side. So people will get in, they'll, cost money to get into metals, sure, but then they're wholly surprised to find that the other company is raking them over the coals to buy their metals back, or they're out there, on a journey to find someone to purchase these metals, and that person's looking to make a buck as well. So there's so many pitfalls, and I could go on, for a long time. But at the end of the day, dealing with someone who is going to be just and fair and honest is so key and so important. And that's one of the things that I take a lot of pride in. It's why I'm at Genesis. It's not the first metal company I ever left, or ever worked at. Full transparency, I left another company and actually went back into Christian ministry because I was like, I don't want to be a part of this. If they're going to be unhappy with the way that I want to conduct business, and that's not how they want, because maybe the margins are smaller or this or that, then that's just fine. It's just not something I'll be a part of. And so Genesis, being able to be a company that does it the right way. And I think it's a testament to the fact that we see so many repeat clients. It blows my mind, this company versus the last company. Every day I'm getting people calling, hey, Bill, I worked with you. I got a text from a lady here, actually, that watches your show. And I talked to her and helped her a while back. And she said, we were just talking, and, I saw you on John Michael Chambers, and you were the best. I've talked to other companies, and I just was reminded of how great. And that really warms my heart. I get a lot of Christmas cards, so it's an indication that we're doing the right thing over here.
Well, I'm glad you found a new home at Genesis, and I'm glad that a lot of folks listening to this broadcast are finding a home with you at Genesis to help protect and preserve their hard-earned assets, their life's energy, the fruits of their labor, the gifts from God. I also want to say, quick question, very important, folks. Don't go away yet. And maybe I'm catching you off guard. Bill, but we're completely honest and transparent. So let's get an honest and transparent, off the cuff answer, whether you know directly or not. Give us some feedback. You mentioned the folks that bought these semi-numismatics or these overpriced special rare coins and so forth, that didn't know about it, didn't want it, have overpaid for it. And now, because I'm getting some people ask me, we'd like to. I did a master class with Empower 2000, and we did a group Q&A, and one of the questions was, "Hey, I've got all these things. Now that I've learned that it wasn't what I wanted, how do I unload them?" My question to you is, would your firm buy? Here was my answer. My answer to them was, call the firm you bought it from and tell them to buy it back from you, but ask them, will they charge a commission? And of course, they're going to 99 times out of 100. So that's the last thing they want. They were overburdened on the upfront. Now they're going to get taken to the cleaners on the back end. Who wants to do that? So then my suggestion was, well, why don't you shop companies and say, hey, listen, I have all these semi-numismatics, these partially rare coins I overpaid for and can't get my money back out of. Can you? And why would someone want to get rid of them? Well, bite the bullet now and buy silver. You'll make it back real fast. That's the concept, right? Get in the right place at the right time, right? So that's the reason for it. Now, so I advised in this live group session I spoke with just yesterday, and I said, well, I would suggest shopping, go back to the company. If they won't buy it back without a commission, shop companies and see who will have the least commission. Then it dawned on me, would your firm, for example, and the answer may not be favorable, the answer is what it is, or maybe you don't know and you'll find out. Would your firm, and this is not a bad sales practice, I'm sure there's no regulation on it, it's just an internal policy as I think it through. Having said that, would your firm buy back these individuals that have this and are learning about it now? Would your firm buy back those metals at no commission in exchange for the agreement to acquire silver at your firm? That's a question. I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm curious.
No, that's a great question. So the answer is absolutely. So obviously, from I try to be very transparent as a business. We're here to make money. So there has to be some incentive. I.e., if someone was trying to sell us, precious metal from another company and purchased no intention to buy other metals, it's really no incentive for us. But obviously, if the idea is we're going to actually make a purchase here with the funds that are acquired from this, then we can find an outlet. I mean, we do a lot of business. Some people want that stuff. Maybe not for everything they have, but some people do want that. So we can find procure buyers for that. So that's not really an issue, as long as the incentive is there, i.e., there's a purchase to be had falling through. Then absolutely. I mean, it's good business here to help people and assist with people. Sometimes it's even just giving people an idea of what they should expect or look for. I have plenty of times people come in and call, and it's not that. They are just looking to liquidate, but they just want some guidance on, well, how, maybe what is fair for this? What should I say? What pitfalls? And I'm happy to take some time out of my day to assist someone that's been on the wrong side of this, because I think that's what, as Christians, as patriots, that's what we're called to do. So absolutely, I would say yes to your question. And beyond that, even if someone just wants a little insight, I'm happy to take a little time out of my day. I am obviously very busy, but if you're ever too busy to help someone, then you're too busy.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's a very good answer, and I'm very happy to hear that. I hope the folks that were asking me that question yesterday have tuned into this program as I directed them to, because I don't have access to these people directly. But, I'm sure they're following me and following you now. So that's good news for those in that situation. And, of course, it makes sense for your firm to make money if you're bailing them out of a mess. And, folks, anyway, let's wrap the broadcast up. I think I took another note or two. I guess I didn't. So excellent news. Please, folks, visit jmcgenesismetals.com. You will hear from President Trump on there about these issues. You will hear from me about these issues. You will hear from Genesis about these issues. And then give Bill a call at 1-800-200-4653. These are great times. This is your AOL moment in crypto and in gold and silver. Don't fall asleep and don't end up in the wrong hands. Get a free consult with Bill. He'll tell you straight up what's going on. You feel comfortable. You will have a consultative relationship versus a transaction relationship. You will have an ongoing relationship. If there's a ratio trade in order, you will be informed. You will not overpay on the front end. You will pay a very, very competitive price on the front end and zero on the back end. Doesn't get any better than that. Genesis Gold Group, Bill Armour. Thank you, Bill, for being here with us and giving our audience some great insights, not just into gold and silver, but into all things that matter behind the scenes on the economy itself. Thank you, Bill. We'll see you. I guess, I don't know. I don't have the calendar in front of me. If I don't see you before Christmas, actually, I think we have one more episode. But in case I don't see you, Merry Christmas to you and your beautiful family. God bless you, and thank you for imparting your wisdom, spiritually and Christian grounded as well, with your business keen sense to help the people that follow me in my work. Thank you, Bill Armour.
Thanks so much for having me. Merry Christmas.
All right, folks, I'll be right. Thank you, Bill. I'll be right back after this important announcement with a quick, important video to wrap up the show. But here's an announcement real quick. I'll be right back.
Your hard-earned assets are under attack and may be in harm's way. Many people are confused, thus concerned about what is going on with the currency, the markets, and the economy. A great change is underway. With the Private Wealth Coach Consult, of which John Michael Chambers discusses in greater detail in Module 10 of the Wealth Coach University, you can break through procrastination as you become informed, empowered, and connected. JMC has created a system whereby you can avail yourself to a team of like-minded professionals to help you navigate this unprecedented minefield and meet privately with John Michael Chambers. The Wealth Coach University was launched based upon years of experience as a successful former financial advisor to help you, Goots, get out of the system.
Hello, this is John Michael Chambers. I retired after nearly 15 years as an independent financial advisor in 2008 to heed a higher calling. My biography can be accessed by visiting wealthcoachuniversity.com. I know what goes on behind the scenes in the world of Wall Street and investments, as well as having my finger on the pulse of the global financial reset of which we are presently engaged. Let's discuss the Wealth Coach Consult. I am not a financial advisor, and I do not give specific financial advice, nor can I assist you in the repositioning of your assets. I will, however, provide answers to your questions to the best of my ability and provide a high-level analysis of you and your situation. At the conclusion of our consult, if one is prepared to take the next step and begin repositioning assets to GOOTS, G-O-O-T-S, get out of the system, I will make available to you the appropriate individuals in my resource network. In the financial world, these are licensed, seasoned, patriot professionals that can assist in this area and to help you get from where you are to where you need to be as soon as possible, both confidentially and with confidence. Visit wealthcoachuniversity.com. By doing so, you gain access to the 10 free educational video PowerPoint modules. Then schedule your Wealth Coach consult with me today. I do look forward to speaking with you. It's time. All right, welcome back. As we conclude the show, I do want to say a few things. First off, I can do 8 private Wealth Coach consultations on a private Zoom screen with you if you need assistance, because I encompass the full picture beyond gold and silver, which is a key component of the GOOTS model. I encourage you to visit wealthcoachuniversity.com. Check out the free modules. There is a mechanism to reach me. I can only do 8 private consults a month, and this won't be available forever and won't be needed later. So when that time comes, we'll just scrap this and free up my time a little bit. But I'm available to speak with you and assist you as a wealth coach. Visit the site, schedule your consult with me. I want to also make a quick announcement. JMCBroadcasting.com has got its site revamped. It's 90% done. Please check it out. JMCBroadcasting.com. You can subscribe for free, and you can also now join our Premium Patriot Premium portal. All the information is there for you to consider. JMCBroadcasting.com. Also, I've just published a book. It's on Amazon.com. It's been out for a little bit. Global Financial Reset. Quick read, important read, Lots of strategies in there. I delve deeply into all aspects of the multi-bucket Goots model, which includes gold and silver. People need income in retirement. I used to be a financial advisor. I can provide for you very good analysis of where you're at, and then to put on my new hat in the world we're living in from these great guests I learned from, and help you get across the economic minefield, surviving and thriving the transition. Pick up a copy of the book. It's Christmas time. It'll be a good book to give to those you care about. All right, so I think that's going to conclude our broadcast. JMCGenesisMetals.com, 1-800-200-4653. Ask for Bill Armour. And I'd like to leave you with this very important and short video clip from WealthCoachUniversity.com. With Christmas and New Year's upon us, the next Global Financial Reset Show has a new schedule, just this one time. And thanks to one of our producers for accommodating me. We will broadcast live on Tuesday, December 30th. That's the next GFR show. Tuesday, December 30th, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Be sure to watch my weekend war reports between 6 a.m. and noon. And don't miss my Monday, this coming Monday, December 22nd, with Ricardo Bosi, our every other week Bosi Briefs at 6 p.m. Eastern, December 22nd. Stay safe, and may God be with you. All right, I am John Michael Chambers, and welcome to the final module, Module 10 of the Wealth Coach University. Congratulations, you've made it this far. Appreciate you being here with me. As I mentioned in the previous modules, I'm available, but on a very limited basis, to meet with you one-on-one privately on a Zoom audio call. You can click on Schedule Your Wealth Coach Consult with JMC for the logistical and functional details and availability. It's quite simple, couple of clicks. Now, many people, again, have been asking and reaching out to me, asking me to address the swirling confusions surrounding how to protect and preserve their hard-earned assets and to make sense of all the change that is rather unclear to many of us at this time. This subject is addressed on occasion with me and my guests on my special programming episodes, but with all the other issues of this war at hand, I simply could not do this any justice, resulting in the public needing and wanting and asking for more. Thus, I formed the Wealth Coach University. Wealth Coach University includes the ability to have a private consult with me and meet my resource network. I still believe there is a closing window of opportunity to be in the right place at the right time to avoid what is happening and what is coming soon. So one not only survives the transition, but potentially thrives through it. But time is of the essence, and I do not have a crystal ball. Things will settle down and become quite clear via the Trump administration when that time comes. In the meantime, it's time to act. And so I've launched the Wealth Coach University based upon years of successful experience as a former and recovering financial advisor, as well as in the creation and practice of the concept of Goots, get out of the system. So what can you expect? Well, in the interest of time, it is strongly recommended that you have listened to each and every module in sequential order, taking notes along the way to help you best prepare for our discussion. Time is valuable, time is money. I had mentioned this at the closing of Module 1, as you may recall. So once we are connected on the Zoom audio, and you do not need a Zoom app, you just need a device, a cell phone, a laptop, computer, etc. We will begin right away by addressing the questions you may have. The hour goes by fast, or the hours go by fast. There are several consulting coaching options that I've made available for you, as you will see on the Wealth Coach University site landing page, where you go to schedule your consult with me. And I believe option 2, the 3-hour block, serves most well. You'll know what's best for you. The Zoom will not be recorded, so be prepared again to take notes while we're talking. What will you gain from this? Well, you should have many of your questions answered, and this may help you to make informed decisions that you are becoming increasingly more confident with. If another consult is needed, or throughout weeks, months, the year, etc., secure the time, and we shall meet again. Typically, the financial questions, depending upon your personal financial profile, can take some time, as I am fairly well versed in that world. And to quote, I believe, George Carlin, garbage in, garbage out. You will get what you put into this, and I believe I can be a most valuable source for you in a consulting and coaching manner, having in my past life been a financial advisor, as mentioned in previous modules. I can open up my resource network to you. Remember, today and for many years now, I'm not a financial advisor, and I do not give specific financial advice, nor can I assist you in the repositioning of your assets. I will provide answers to your questions to the best of my ability and provide a high-level, straightforward talk analysis of you and your current situation. I put on two hats. Put on the old financial advisor hat in terms of knowing the questions to ask, having many of the answers, and knowing where to go for the answers I don't have. And the second hat, sort of the world I'm in now and have been for many years, the real world we're moving into as we bust out of the matrix. So at the conclusion of our consult, if one is prepared to take the next step and begin repositioning assets in the Goots model, I will make available to you the appropriate individuals in my resource network. In the financial world, these are licensed, seasoned professionals that can assist in this area and to help you get from where you are to where you need to be as soon as possible. I might add, confidentially and with confidence. So do not delay. This war is fast, this war is fluid, and they often say, as can be seen through history, the final battles in war are oftentimes the most critical and dangerous. Moving forward, this service may not be available this consult, so secure your block of private consulting time with me today. Stay safe. May God be with you and your family as we take our country back. It's an incredible time to be alive. And we begin creating and living in the golden age in the world God intended for us all. Stay safe, and may God be with you. I'll see you in the consult.